Modern European drama. The main common characteristic of works of early modern drama is that they are written with the aspiration of being performed on stage, thus differing from Renaissance drama, which was written mainly to be read. The most famous drama text of that period, the Celestina 4. This entails a radical change of audiences. Early modern drama addressed highly diverse audiences, from the illiterate class to the intellectuals and the nobility. As such, its themes and objectives underwent a fundamental transformation. The highly refined and elitist Renaissance culture was replaced by a mass culture, a phenomenon that will affect the other genres, mainly narrative, only in an age when literacy became ubiquitous, i.e. in the 19th century. Court theatre, which emerged at the end of the 15th and the beginning of the 16th centuries, continues to exist, but becomes a more and more recessive phenomenon. Regular, early modern drama is either performed in institutionalized playhouses and on playgrounds, depending on climate conditions, or on carts, by itinerant companies. Performances are public in the sense that everyone who is ready to pay affordable fee is admitted. The comparison with religious drama in the strict sense, which still exists in certain countries, mainly Spain, allows the most important difference to be determined between early modern drama and the medieval drama performances, which were commonly accessible as well but became restricted because they were bound to the festivals of the Christian calendar, primarily Christmas and Easter. The theatre created in the 16th century establishes for the first time in human history the cultural practice of a public visual culture that is not bound to ritual patterns, religious or political, as was the case in classical Athens, and the ensuing constraints. The research conducted on European early modern drama has been confined to the companion style type of monograph so far. Existing monographs on the European drama of that age largely lack a discussion of extra-literary discourses that ought to be considered. They follow traditional patterns of literary history in the narrow sense, including at best some commonplace remarks regarding staging. Numerous journal articles with a comparative focus are mostly restricted to a more or less updated variant of motive history or to comparisons between single works of specific authors. Highly sophisticated new approaches to great dramatic authors of that age, such as, e.g., Stephen Greenblatt's publications on the Elizabethan theatre, have considered the questions raised by early modern theatre from the perspective of one particular, national, culture. Exogenous sources, mainly Italian and French, are taken into consideration, if applicable, but the perspective as a whole is not comparative. This applies as well, mutatis mutandis, to Antonio Marable's research on the Spanish Golden Age drama. Marable considers the choral theatres as part of a propaganda system. That is in principle a hypothesis worth being considered, but his focus on Spanish drama of that age entails certain limitations with regard to this thesis. Walter Benjamin's essay on German Baroque drama is still a source of inspiration, as is Albrecht Skon's monograph on emblem books and German Baroque drama, which was the first publication to draw attention to the close links between drama and the visual culture of that age. So far, however, there has been no systematic discussion of early modern drama as a phenomenon pertaining to the entirety of Western and Central European societies of that age. The main desiderata of the DramaNet project are 1. A thoroughly comparative perspective, 2. A consideration of drama theatre beyond the confines of literary discourse in the traditional sense, 3. A straw-in hypothesis regarding the societal function of early modern drama, 4. An integration of the data available in the cultural field into the general historical dynamic of that age, the rise of England and France, decay tendencies, but mainly stagnancy in the rest of Europe, including the German territories. The project is investigating the productivity of the metaphor of culture as a virtual network. The metaphor is conceived in the first place with regard to this specific field, early modern drama, but its aims at the same time go beyond the limits of the age and the genre that are the focal points of this project. Postmodernist theorizing of larger cultural contexts replaced the structuralist standard metaphor of the tree by the metaphor of the rhizome. Deleuze Guattari. 9. The main progress in this replacement was the overcoming of the concepts of strictly defined hierarchies and the unidirectional processes that are implied by the tree metaphor. The problem inherent to the rhizome concept is that it seems to suggest a naturalistic, biology-inspired model of cultural processes, which nevertheless may follow a logic that is independent of the general bends of the evolution of life. Cultural artifacts differ from biological entities in that they do not necessarily follow a pre-stabilized program, encoded in the genes, but are rather subject to relatively free decisions made by humans. The rhizome concept, whose provisional merits shall not be contested, may have its weakest point in being still all too structuralist, notwithstanding its claims to being post-structuralist. A rhizome is a non-hierarchical, decentered structure. On the other hand, however, it is an ongoing replication of one basic pattern that remains identical to itself during the processes of replication. The third point to be raised critically is the question of the transformation of visible forms, that is, of entities consistent of large quantities of elementary units. In the realm of biological life these transformations occur, but the mutation of genes and the possibly ensuing coming into being of new species are relatively rare. They happen within chronological frames that transcend the regular human existence. Culture, on the other hand, is characterized by rapid and erratic change in phenomena. If there is stability at all, it is to be found neither in the pheno nor in the genotype, but rather in function. In short, if the notion of rhizome is applied to the cultural sphere, its shortcomings are the problem of agency, the overestimation of standardizing with regard to the elementary units of cultural structures, and the undervaluation of morphic change as a distinctive characteristic of cultural evolution. The metaphor, or rather, metonymy of circulating social energy introduced by Stephen Greenblatt with regard to modeling cultural processes has the advantage of accounting for the high degree of flexibility of the corresponding processes. The risks implied by this concept seem to converge in 2 points. The question of whether such circulation happens freely, according to a largely non-causal logic, contingency, and on behalf of an imminent propulsive potential of the material concerned, social energy, or whether it is dependent on structures that enable it to a greater degree than is suggested by the assumption of an inherent energy. The latter alternative points towards the complex of questions revolving around the problem of agency. Such structures may be established or not. They may be enhanced or rather be restricted. They may be extended or rather interrupted. The high relevance of the problem of agency and especially of exerting pressure, in one way or another, on the circulating social energies becomes all the more visible as one transcends the analysis of national circuits. How are we to account for the incontestable differences to be observed with regard to, e.g., early modern English and Spanish drama, theatre, respectively? What is different in the processes of circulation, and where does the difference originate from? And, perhaps the most important point, what are the consequences of these differences with regard to culture in the and, in this case, theatre, and with regard to culture at large, that is, society? The second point in Greenblatt's approach that might be worth reconsidering is that he posits the separation of artistic practices from other social practices. 11. This separation is crucial with regard to the recipient's perspective. The most famous narrative text of that age, The quiz joke deals exactly with this problem, in the sense that it presents a hero who seems to be not capable or not willing to operate this separation. But to what extent should we separate artistic material and other cultural material with regard to processes of transfer and circulation? Of course, there is a separation as far as the materialized forms are concerned, paintings, and pragmatic, manufactured goods may travel on one ship, but as material forms they are distinct and travel as distinct items. This separation seems much more difficult to establish in terms of conceptual forms. What exactly is transferred when the dramatic text is exported to another country or even just to another town within the same country? Firstly, of course, a specific text, but along with it, as shall be argued here, all the non-artistic cultural forms and concepts it is made up of: philosophical, theological, anthropological, juridical, political discourses, etc. Cultural dynamics are to a large extent based on this specific feature. Organized forms, works, artistic as well as non-artistic, are not only transported themselves, but rather along with the whole range of cultural material they contain. The main desiderator of the Drama Net project with respect to theory are: 1. A concept that accounts for the specificity of cultural processes with regard to natural processes. 2. A model that enables and favors transnational comparisons. 3. An approach that allows for an adequate consideration of the problem of agency. And 4. A frame that opens up possibilities for the discussion of literary phenomena as simultaneously separate from and part of a larger discursive scenario, or cultural practices respectively. The Drama Net project is an attempt to move beyond the existing concepts just referred to by investigating the explanatory potential of the metaphor I indicated above. I will briefly outline the main implications of this new concept. A network is a non-hierarchical structure without a center. It does not originate spontaneously, however, or by means of an extra-human, evolution-driven process. It is produced by humans and created for intention-driven purposes. These intentions may be fulfilled or not. If they are not fulfilled, they may be destroyed by those who constructed it. Very frequently, though, network structures that do not evolve according to initial expectations assume other, often unforeseen and in that sense potentially revolutionary, functions. As soon as they exist, even net structures functioning according to initial purposes come to transport not only the material for the circulation of which they were created, but other, at times completely heterogeneous material as well. This happens frequently without being noticed, at least for some time. Innovation is in most cases the consequence of such an unnoticed transfer of heterogeneous material that would have been rejected had it been noticed. Network structures may be set up everywhere and anywhere. Apart from the will to set them up, they do not need any further specified substratum. The only requirement is to have the means, money, labor force, to construct and entertain them. A net has no intellectual form. Networks are never complete. They are not created once and for all. Net structures may thus extend and ramify to regions completely unknown to those who set them up initially. What may be the possible results of such a new approach to early modern European drama? Firstly, it would automatically free the texts and the actual practices from being considered within the boundaries of national cultures. Evident common traits could be explained as originating from the participation in one common network structure and need no longer be explained by way of almost always highly speculative assumptions about this or that book having been available to this or that author at a given place in a given moment. Transculturality would thus become the standard case. Nationality, of cultural artifacts would be considered the particular case to be explained according to the control logics outlined above, mainly power or belief-driven attempts to restrict the floating material available at a given place at a given moment. Common traits between spatially or temporally separated works of art would no longer be difficult to explain. Reception in later times or in remote regions could be accounted for according to the three basic control mechanisms mentioned above. Circulating material may thus be considered exoteric or esoteric, depending on the times and places where it is assessed. Fundamental formal standards that can be observed in all European, national, cultures could be accounted for by considering the floating of the material as taking place to differing degrees of formal organization. Shaping need not necessarily start at the basic level whenever a quantity of material is extracted from the net in order to be shaped. Relative difference with regard to form could be explained with the possibility of imposing whatever form on the material floating in the net. Theatre performances are based on literary texts, or, at least, on a précis of a possible lit text. As cultural, art, facts, they differ, though, from texts. The reception situation is not individual, it is collective. The actual artifact is mediated by language and vision. Sound and, eventually, scent are additional channels of mediation. The shared experience of reception, the engagement of all the indirect senses 13 and the fusion of the arbitrary, symbolic, and the iconic sign systems result, with the recipient, in the sense of being overwhelmed or, rather, it is the major intention of the cultural practice we call theatre as well as of its modern variants, film and television, to bring about this effect. The main characteristic of early modern drama as a cultural practice, that is, as theatre, is its historically unprecedented impact. It reaches the broad audience that neither traditional elitist nor popular culture could draw, and its being stripped of ritual contexts enhances the emotional impact on the individual recipient incommensurably. Ritual performances, such as, e.g., religious drama or the ritual of religious service, entail processes of automatization 14 because of their repetitive structures. As such, early modern theatre is the site of an immensely increased speed as well as the intensification of